Most productivity advice tells us to remove friction from our lives. But what if that's not the whole story? What if that advice is incomplete? Because I agree that we need to eliminate unnecessary friction, but maybe there's other ways to help friction shape our behavior in the ways that we want. If we haven't met yet, my name is Isabel, and on this channel we talk all about embracing your weird in order to build a better brand, business, and life. So let's go. So when I say friction, I'm not talking about anything dramatic. All I'm talking about is anything that makes an action easier or harder. That's what friction is. Tiny barriers, tiny inconveniences, tiny things that get in the way of what you want to do or what you don't want to do. Those tiny differences can become surprisingly big barriers, especially when your brain is out of willpower, out of motivation, tired, etc., etc., etc. For example, if your phone is right next to you on the couch, screen up, right? You'll probably check it without even noticing that you're checking it. Whereas if you go and you put your phone to charge in another room and then you go back and sit on the couch, you're gonna be less inclined to check it because now you have to get up, walk across your house to another room, to go get your phone. That is friction. In one thing, there's almost no friction between you and your phone. In the other example, there's a lot of friction because you need to get up, walk across the room, go to the other room to get your phone. Friction doesn't make the task impossible. It just makes it annoying. It just makes it a little more frustrating. It just makes it a little more complicated. Now, in last week's video, we talked about desire paths, which is a concept that comes from urban planning, which means that our brains will take the most direct route to basically anything because we like efficiency. I'll post a photo of what a desire path is here, but basically it's when, we design these like curvy things leading up to a door and people walk straight through it because they don't want to walk the whole thing. That's a desire path. People desire to go the quickest way from point A to point B. So what do desire paths have to do with anything? Desire paths are basically a physical demonstration of what humans do anyway. We check our Instagram because it's really easy to get to. That's why we check it all the time. We check our phones all the time because it's really easy to get to. We snack when food is visible. If you go to the grocery store hungry, you will probably spend more money at the grocery store than if you went when you weren't hungry, because your brain looks and says, hey, I have a need, and here is a way to solve that need. It's our natural way of being. Now, this isn't a conscious decision. It's just our brain going to the easiest path. For a long time, productivity advice has focused on removing friction from our lives, and I completely agree with that. It wasn't until Atomic Habits, well, let's say James Clear in general. James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, had a blog for years before Atomic Habits ever came out, if you didn't know. And he started talking about adding friction to our lives. And this was the first time I had ever heard anyone talk about this, and I found it fascinating. And basically what he said was, make the habits you want to create easier and make the habits you want to stop harder. You add friction where you want to stop doing things, and you remove friction where you want to start doing things. That's all it boils down to. So what is the problem? The problem is that modern technology has basically removed friction from our lives completely. They've already removed the friction out of almost everything. This looks like having notifications everywhere, which makes you want to check because you feel like you're missing out on something. It looks like the infinite scroll, which means that you always have an infinite more things to look at. It looks like autoplay, where the next thing automatically plays, and so if you don't stop it, you're caught in this loop of just watching and watching and watching. It includes things like recommendations based on you, having an algorithm that is based on you, because obviously if it's based on your personality, you're going to be much more likely to click it. We now live in a world that is full of distractions. And not only full of distractions, but full of distractions that have almost no friction whatsoever. And that means that the behavioral desire path almost always leads to a behavior that we don't want to be doing. The problem isn't friction itself, the problem is where friction exists. Because, like I said before, friction can work in two very different directions, where adding friction helps you stop habits that you want to stop, and removing friction helps you start habits that you want to start. So what do we want to do? We want to make sure that the things that we want to do are as easy as possible. If you want to eat healthier and you want to eat more home-cooked meals, then you need to make the habit of cooking a home-cooked meal as easy as possible. Now, there's a million ways to do this, and for some people, or for every person, it will look a little different, right? For some people, that means stocking up your fridge. For some people, that means doing a monthly meal prep. For other people, it means prepping ingredients so that because the ingredients are prepped, you don't mind cooking at night. For some people, it means prepping lunch and doing a double batch so that dinner is already made. What are we fighting against? We're fighting against the almost no friction of just going on an app and ordering food in, ordering takeout. And what we are trying to remove the friction of is cooking the home-based meal. Now, I've seen a lot of talk about removing the friction, but not enough about adding friction. So what does that mean? Delete the takeout apps off your phone. If you don't have a takeout app, that is one extra step for you to order takeout. It means that you now have to go into your app store, download the app, and then decide what you want to eat. Another thing you can do, a lot of us have like magnets with, like the number of the pizza place. Get rid of all those magnets. Now, every time you want to order pizza, you need to go to your phone, you need to Google the pizza place, you need to find the right one, you need to find the number, and then you need to call. And so it adds friction. That is what we want to do. Remove friction to the habits that we want to do, add friction to the habits that we don't want to do. And this can sometimes come up in ways that are so small you don't even notice them. I've been recently trying to get back into exercise, and I even added it into my schedule from Monday to Friday so that I would have a time set aside to exercise, so that I had no excuse of like, oh, I got busy and didn't have time. Here's the thing. When I wake up in the morning, one of the first things I do is I get dressed and walk my dogs. And usually I'm wearing a t-shirt and jeans because that is like my everyday go-to. And then when the time to exercise came around, that meant I had to change into my exercise clothes. Do you want to know who was not changing into her exercise clothes to exercise? I'll give you one guess. Me. Because changing into leggings sounded exhausting because I do not like leggings. And so that sounded very annoying to me and I would resist it. And on most days, I would not exercise. Now, what did I do? I had to remove that friction. Well, I was getting dressed anyways. So now in the morning, when I get dressed, I put on exercise clothes. And I walk my dogs wearing exercise clothes. And so when the time in my schedule comes around to where I have to exercise, I'm already in my clothes. I've already refilled my water bottle, and all I need to do is actually do the damn thing. That is removing friction. And sometimes it is that small, because the less amount of friction that you have towards doing a habit you want to do, the more likely you are to actually do it. What's interesting is that this idea doesn't just show up in our lives. This idea shows up everywhere. Companies design environments based on how people are going to act. And I don't always agree with how this happens because there's things like hostile architecture, which are terrible in my opinion. But it's things like the grocery store usually puts eggs and milk towards the end of the grocery store so that you have to walk through the entire store in order to get it. Why? It's not because they want to make your eggs inaccessible. It's because eggs and milk are a very normal staple in most people's homes. And so this forces almost everyone to walk through the entire store to get their staple item, which increases impulse buys. It is why, again, and I said this before, you shouldn't go to a grocery store when you're hungry, because it increases impulse buys. I talked about this example in a previous video as well, but Walt Disney did a study of how long people would walk inside of Disneyland with trash in their hand before dropping it on the ground. And the result was around 30 steps. So what did he do? He put a trash can every 30 steps. Why? Because that greatly reduced the amount of people who threw away the trash. Not only because of the 30 steps, but because usually as a human, if you're considering throwing your trash on the ground because you've been holding it for too long, and then you look up and you see that there's a trash can like 5 steps away from you, you are usually a good enough human that you're like, yeah, okay, I can walk 5 more steps and get to it. And so the trash cans every 30 steps worked within the human behavior, not only from the rational, literal point of view of 30 steps, but also from the psychological point of view of, oh, well, there's the trash can. I can walk those steps. So again, reducing friction in 2 different ways to adjust the behavior of humans. Once you understand this, and the reason I wanted to make a video about this topic specifically, you realize that your behavior is not just shaped by your motivation or your willpower or your discipline or blah, blah, blah bro talk. We are all human. And humans' willpower gets depleted. And when willpower gets depleted, everything goes away. Humans are not robots. Discipline is not something humans can maintain 24/7. Motivation is something that really greatly varies depending on how tired you are and how emotional you are and so many other factors. We need to make sure that the behaviors you want to do are as easy as possible when you don't have the brain power to have discipline, motivation, and willpower. Because if it can happen in that moment, then it will always happen. Not always, but you know what I mean. It will mostly happen. And that's what we're looking for. Not to shame ourselves more for not having enough willpower, not to feel guilty because we didn't feel motivated to cook for ourselves, but to instead adjust our environment so that the behavior that we want to happen is more likely to happen. Because sometimes when we struggle with habits, we assume that it's personal. We take it personal, right? We think we're not good enough. We think we're lazy. We think we're unmotivated because that's the talk that society gives us. But it's not true. I don't even know if laziness exists, to be honest. So instead of thinking like that, why don't we find a way to do things that actually works for us? And have the compassion to know that if something isn't working, we're not the problem. Our environment or our habits or the friction in our environment is. Not because we failed, it's because we're human. Because again, we're not robots. So I'm curious, what's one place in your life where you notice there's a lot of friction right now? Or what's one habit that you've been trying to do consistently that you haven't been able to do? And where can you either reduce or increase friction in order to make that habit easier? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear more examples of this. And if you enjoyed this video, please remember to like and subscribe. It really helps this channel grow. I make new videos like this every single Friday. So until then, stay wild, stay weird, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.